I am thrilled to have so many great patriots. I'm grateful to all of you for joining us today. I'm especially grateful to have my lovely wife, Usha. Usha looks great in that dress, honey. I love that dress. Thank you. We've also got some other distinguished guests here. I want to give a shout out just before we get started. We have got Congressman Greg Murphy. Where's Greg at? Greg, thank you for everything, man. Thank you for your leadership. You all have an incredible nominee for Attorney General in the state of North Carolina, Dan Bishop. Thank you, Dan. We also have Republican nominee for Labor Commissioner, Luke Farley. Where is Luke at? Raise your hand. Luke, thank you, man. And then we've got Republican nominee for North Carolina Auditor. We have got Dave Bollock. Where's Dave at? Thank you, man. So we have got 43 or 42 days to the election. And North Carolina is one of our most important states. And I got to say, North Carolina is becoming like a second home to me. But North Carolina is a second home to me, and it is going to be the state that turns this country red. We're going to send Donald Trump back to the White House, and we're going to do it thanks to the great patriots of this state. Now, sometimes, my friends, politics is complicated, but this race is about as simple as it could be, and you can tell that it's simple because Kamala Harris, more than any candidate in the history of presidential politics, is running away from a record instead of to a record. And there are all these different takes, all these different spins we can put on this race, but I think the most simple and the most direct is that Donald Trump had a record to be proud of and Kamala Harris has a record to be ashamed of. So we're not going to promote her. We're going to say, now, it's funny, Kamala is as afraid of the American media, even though most of the media is friendly to Kamala, as she is some of the most hostile leaders all over the world. And I happen to believe that if you have a vice president who is terrified to speak to the American people and terrified to give an interview to the American media, that she belongs nowhere near the Oval Office. I mean, think about this. How can we trust Kamala Harris to represent us in front of the most dangerous regimes in the world if she won't even sit for an interview with the American media? Now, I say that, and I admit that I'm a little biased here, because part of the reason I think Kamala Harris should do some interviews is because the American people deserve it. But part of the reason I want Kamala Harris to do some interviews is because every time she opens her mouth, I think Donald Trump and I gain about 100,000 votes. So, and I don't know, of the few interviews that she has given, I don't know if it's one or two, but it's not that many. It's funny to try to have her answer what her actual plans are for the American people. You know, the press back here, we've got some reporters and we'll take some questions in a little bit, but the press will ask Kamala Harris, what is your specific plan to lower the cost of groceries, to lower the cost of housing, which of course have gone up wildly under the policies of Kamala Harris? And you know what she'll say? She'll say, well, I grew up in a middle-class family, and I know the struggles. Or she'll say, you know, when I was a little girl, my parents had a very nice lawn. She'll say anything but what her actual plans are to lower the inflation that she caused. She'll say anything other than talk about how she's going to fix the problems that her administration led to. She will do anything to avoid answering the very simple fact that Kamala Harris has made the American people's lives worse. And on November 5th, the state of North Carolina is going to say to Kamala Harris, you're fired. Go back to San Francisco where you belong. Now, Let's just go through the ways in which Kamala Harris has made the lives of North Carolinians worse off. You know that it costs over $1,000 more per month to afford the same things that you would have afforded 3.5 years ago. That's more than $12,000 a year just to afford the same quality of life as when Donald Trump was president. Now that's not it, of course, because everything has become more expensive under the policies of Kamala Harris. She casts the tie-breaking vote on almost $4 trillion of wasteful spending, where she taxed money from the American taxpayer, sent it off to China and to foreign regimes all over the world, printed money we didn't have to give it to other people, and now the American families can't afford basic middle-class necessities. You go to a grocery store, the price of eggs when Donald Trump left office was about $1.50 a dozen. The price of eggs, the average now, is close to $4 a dozen, thanks to the policies of Kamala Harris. And I'll tell you, I know this very personally, because my kids, we got a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and they eat a whole lot of eggs every morning. So I feel it as much as anybody. I see it as much as anybody, because we are, it takes a lot of food to feed 3 hungry kids. Now, we took our boys, actually, I'll tell you a story. We took our boys with us on the campaign trail just a couple of days ago when we were in Pennsylvania. And we went to a Hispanic grocery store in Reading, Pennsylvania, and my 2 boys came along with me. And it illustrates how, sometimes kids, their personalities are just inborn, Because we took our 7-year-old boy and our 4-year-old boy, and we go to this grocery store, and I was so proud of my 4-year-old because he set a goal for himself that he was going to do 100 reading lessons with his mama, and he actually accomplished that goal last Saturday. So we're very proud of our 4-year-old. Give him a round of applause. So I say, hey, boys, you can come on the campaign trail with me, and we're going to get you anything you want at this grocery store. And of course, the 4-year-old wants a candy bar, but the 7-year-old, I'm literally talking on camera about the price of eggs and the price of groceries in this grocery store. And my 7-year-old's like, Dad, we need to get a dozen eggs. And I'm like, son, when I said you could get anything, I meant like a Snickers bar or an ice cream. And he's like, no, Dad, you cooked the last 3 eggs this morning. If we don't get eggs, we're not going to have any more eggs. And the 7-year-old, he's got his mama's personality. Very practical, worried about whether we have enough eggs. And right now, all across our country, we've got a lot of families that are cutting back because of Kamala Harris's war on affordability in this country. And Donald Trump and I believe in a very simple principle, my friends. We believe that if you work hard and play by the rules, you ought to be able to afford a nice life for your American family. It's that simple. And that is not that hard. We just got to get better leadership and common sense economic policies back in the White House. We got to get Kamala Harris out of there and put Donald Trump back where he belongs, leading this great country and pursuing common sense economic policies. Now, let's just check.